you go through Franschhoek, if you think about it, you can stop at a brewery every couple of meters and do a bit of a brewery tour. But if you think about, a Southern African brewery tour where you can go on holiday and drive between all these breweries, and be able to travel through the bush and travel through such amazing places. It's another way of doing it, and it takes you a bit longer, but it's something we definitely want to promote and try to get more people to drive out this way and come and see what we're doing, and see where we live and what is around us, because it's something that's amazing to experience.
I often dream of doing an overland trip to Botswana and maybe even back to Zim and Zambia. And after talking to Murray Stephenson, I think this trip should include a few brewery tours. My name is Holger Meyer and this is Beer World. Murray Stephenson, welcome to the show.
How's it, Holger? Thanks for having me.
You're all the way in the Okavango in Maun.
Yeah, I'm currently sitting up in Maun, Botswana.
So before we get into that, where are you from originally and where did you grow up?
I grew up in Cape Town. I lived in Cape Town for most of my life. And I've only been up here in Maun for just over a year and a half now.
Okay. And how did you get into brewing?
It started by just having an interest in beer, and myself and two other mates decided to try home brewing just for fun, to see what it was all about and try to learn how beer was actually made. And yeah, it just went well. We really enjoyed it and we got more and more into it. And just through that home brewing passion, it kind of led me into a career in brewing.
Okay. And did you have a formal education?
Once I got into brewing, I then started studying through the IBD. So I was working and studying at the same time. But yeah, not before I got into brewing.
Okay. And talk us through a little bit about your career in brewing. You've been at some of the top craft brewers in South Africa. How did you end up at Woodstock?
Well, yeah. So as I was saying, I started home brewing and was getting into it, and then realized that it was something I could maybe do for a living. I was kind of looking for a job at the moment. I had a background in zoology. I studied zoology at UCT, and most of the work at that time was taking me out of Cape Town, but I was looking to stay. So then through brewing, I realized there were some similarities within the science world. So realized I kind of wanted to get into it. And I think I was just lucky enough to have a connection with Andre, who had basically just started Woodstock Brewery at the time. And I got in there and started working as a brewer there when they had I think they had only done one or two brews by the time I joined. So it was still early days, and I started in a very junior position, kind of learning from the bottom and working my way up type of situation. And then I was at Woodstock for about 5 years.
Okay.
And I was there for quite a long stint.
Who else was working there as a brewer in that time?
It was Dierwald, who went on to CBC and gone over to Mauritius now, and Dylan France. They were Dierwald was the head brewer when I started there, and then Dylan and I kind of worked together as a production.
Yeah, I do remember the other two as well, yeah.
Another guy, Carl, who was from Holland, who was kind of the brewmaster who helped out at the time when I was there.
Okay. Yeah, we had some I've had some lovely times at Woodstock. I can remember once going there with a whole group of guys. We were on a hops tour with the SAB. So we went to George and ended up visiting a few of the small brewers, and I think we also went to Woodstock. But I think
I remember you guys coming through. I would have been around at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So 5 years at Woodstock. I'm sure you learned a lot there. Hey, they make wonderful beer there.
Yeah, it was a great learning curve coming from just a little bit of homebrewing experience and then getting stuck into the real brewing world and studying at the same time. It was a lot to learn, and it was a good place to learn that.
Mm. And then it seems the inevitable happened. All the small brewers train up these guys, and then the big guys come and snatch you. Or was it not like that?
No, not exactly like that. I think after 5 years, I was looking for something different again.
Okay.
And yeah, when I moved over to Jack Black, started working at Jack Black for a while.
Okay. And I guess that's completely different. I've never been to the Jack Black Brewery.
Yeah, it's a nice step up. Woodstock's very much hands-on, whereas Jack Black, a very modern, very sophisticated, big brew house and brewing system. So it's nice to learn both sides. It's nice to be more hands-on, be more in touch with the ingredients and the processes, and then go to somewhere like Jack Black where everything's really fancy. It's amazing equipment to work with. It's on a much bigger scale. It's good to see both sides. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, it sounds cool. And were you also involved in marketing at all during this time? Did you have to go and do events and stuff, or?
At Woodstock, yeah, I did a bit of everything.
Okay.
We did quite a lot of events. But at Jack Black, I was just more involved as a production brewer.
Okay. Was it before the Heineken time or after the Heineken time?
That was after.
So Heineken had already invested in them, and yeah, okay. Did you get any exposure to the Heineken people?
No, not so much.
Okay.
I was involved more in just the brewing.
Okay, and from there?
So after Jack Black, I was kind of looking for something a little bit smaller again.
Okay.
Always very interested in the brewpub models and smaller scale stuff like that. So I helped set up like a brewpub microbrewery in Constantia called Patiala. And that was, it was an interesting project to be a part of and to set it up. But we had our launch in February 2020, and then we all know what happened in March of 2020. Yeah, it was a great time to be starting a brewery.
Is that still going?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay. Well, good for them.
Yeah.
But you didn't last long there then.
No, then we went into lockdown.
Yeah.
Things got very quiet. And tough time to be starting a brewery. So there wasn't too much going on there. There was, obviously you have the questions of when things are going to lift and if we will be able to carry on and carry on brewing. So it was during that lockdown period that I then actually made another move. And I started talking to the guys up here in Botswana.
Mm.
I was also looking for something different at the time. Ended up making that move during the COVID lockdown period, basically.
Okay, because they must have also had lockdowns in Botswana.
Yeah, it was very similar to what was going on in South Africa. I think Botswana often followed suit with what happened in South Africa.
Yeah.
And I think in the end, we maybe had a little bit more alcohol bans than might have happened down in South Africa. Yeah.
So you're working at Okavango Craft Brewery now in Maun. When did that brewery open?
Also February 2020.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah. So again, not great timing to open a brewery.
Yeah.
But our opening we started in February 2020, but we only really got going in September of last year after all of the ups and downs and opens and closes
Okay. So it is all pretty new.
Yeah, it's all still very new.
Yeah. Okay, so I've done a wonderful series which I called Sapphirs Abroad, and I've spoken to guys in Sri Lanka and in Hong Kong, in the UK, wonderful stories. So it seems like, and especially for beer people, but for brewers, but also for salespeople. 2 guys in Hong Kong doing wonderful work selling beer in Hong Kong. So yeah, you're not quite abroad, but you out the country, and So maybe give us a picture of what it's like living in a different country, or in a different African country.
Making the move up to Maun from Cape Town was quite a difference. I mean, something I was looking for something different at the time. Looking to get out of Cape Town and experience living in a new place completely. I didn't quite expect it to be Botswana, but I'd always had an interest in Botswana. I did a trip here when I was quite young. I think that trip resulted in me actually going and studying zoology, being interested in kind of the natural environment. So I was always had a want to come back to Botswana and spend some time in the bush. So when this opportunity kind of presented itself, at first I was like, nah, I don't imagine myself moving out into like a small town in the middle of the bush. Well, not quite in the middle of the bush, but and I made the jump and got here, and it's been a good change. I mean, Maun's a very small town. They call it the Dusty Donkey Town, but it's kind of like the Wild West out here. It's very different. It's a lot of fun. Everything's an adventure. It's a great experience. Starting a brewery in a town like this is another story. But living in a town like this is really cool. It's been a great adventure so far.
Okay, so it's a positive thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and all the equipment and stuff, do you get it from Cape Town, or how was that already there?
So I did join the company when they had already started.
Yeah.
They started in February, and I only got here in November of 2020. But they had worked closely with the Demetec guys to buy, Demetec down in Cape Town to buy all the equipment and get it up here. So everything had come through Cape Town. Yeah.
Okay, and you know the Demetec setup, and you know the people there.
Yeah. I mean, through the previous jobs in Cape Town, I've been working with Demetec, buying a lot of our raw materials from them and everything like that.
Okay. Maybe talk about the town. How big is the town, or what facilities are there in Maun? I've never been there.
So Maun's it's a very small town. It's kind of looked at the gateway to the Okavango Delta. We've got, they say it's one of the busiest airports in the world, just because the amount of small planes that are flying in and out, carrying guests to all the fancy lodges and camps that are in the Delta. So the town itself is small, it's dusty, and there's a really good community of people that live in Maun. Everything is servicing basically the tourist industry, and people getting out into the Delta. In terms of the facilities that we have here, I think it's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be before I actually came up here. I wasn't quite sure exactly what to expect, but it's got everything you need. It's got a great community. There's a lot to do in and around Maun, including a nice brewery now. So yeah, it's a great place.
And do you get any benefit of those tourists?
Quite a large portion of our business is based on tourism. Mainly the one is servicing the camps in the Delta, so getting our cans out into the camps. So a lot of the guys, a lot of tourists will fly in, land at the airport and fly straight to the camps. So the only time they will really get to interact with our beer is in the camps. But then there are a lot of self-drive tourists who come from the other Southern African countries who will drive and will come and spend a night in Maun to stock up and refuel and everything. So we do get a lot of those guys coming through to do brewery tours, to try the beer, hopefully buy some cans to take with them when they go into the bush.
Okay. So there's a nice spin-off. So when obviously with your brand Okavango, that Maun is the gateway to the Okavango, but how long do you have to drive until you get some real action?
From Maun, it's about a 2-hour drive to
Okay.
Moremi. If you're self-driving up that way, but you can drive, maybe about 45 minutes to an hour north, and you hit the buffalo fence, which is the fence that kind of separates the maybe more the community from the actual wildlife areas. So it's quite close.
Okay. Now I see that you've been trying your luck at fishing.
I did, yeah. I've had some success, more up in the north in the Chobe
Okay.
area. Had some good fishing there, and I did another fishing trip, which I don't really count myself as a fisherman. I just do it for fun and
Yeah.
to have an activity to do with a beer in hand. But it was good fun.
Yeah, I always say I'm not a fisherman. I fish along. So when my two brothers go fishing, I go along, and the big barbel run and things like that is something that's on their radar, definitely.
Yeah. That's one of the most amazing things about being here is that you're so close to those sort of natural phenomena that I just go up and spend a weekend up in the Okavango River, mainly watching the barbel run, but there was a rod in the water at the time as well.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about the brewery? It's got so you've got a tap room. What are the facilities there for visitors?
So we are, brewery tap room. We're quite a small brewery. Our brew house is 500 liters.
Okay.
We've got 4,000 liters fermentation capacity. So it's a small brewery. The idea when they started was to be a brew pub. So we've got a restaurant and a tap room on site. It's quite a big, it's quite a substantial tap room. Got a full restaurant, quite a big menu that does pub food, pizzas, burgers, sides, all those sorts of things. We've got 12 taps set up in our bar. It's quite a large bar area, and we've got quite a big beer garden in front of us as well. So it's a big space that can hold quite a few people. And then we offer brewery tours. We've got a little tasting tray, which is actually shaped like the local boats here that they use to move around the Delta, a Makoro.
Yeah.
So we've got our tasting Makoro of like our core range of 4 beers. And then we've been doing a few events in the tap room as well. We're trying to get some live music going in Maun. We brought some bands over from Zimbabwe recently and did quite a big show, which was good fun. Created quite a good atmosphere in the tap room and a bit of like an oasis in Maun, where you can come watch a show and sometimes feel like you're not in a small town in the middle of Africa.
And I guess there's quite a big expat community because servicing the tourists.
Yeah, there is.
Okay.
All based within tourism and lodges. Yeah.
And did you get to visit an opportunity to pop in at the brewery in Gabs? Or did
I haven't yet.
You haven't been to Gabs. Okay, you flew in.
No.
Okay. Yeah. I was joking with a guy in Lusaka in Zambia that I'm going to do a trip to Gabs and then to Maun and Lusaka. But it's such a long drive and only to visit 3 or 4 breweries would hardly make sense.
Oh, nowadays there's breweries popping up all over the place. So you would be able to do this 2 in Botswana. You could get over to Vic Falls and visit the river. Then there's
Have you been to that?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
We try to work together quite a lot. We're relatively kind of close to each other. We also share some investors. So we try to work together and kind of share ideas. We want to do more collab brews between each other. But that mini festival we held with breweries with bands from Zimbabwe was kind of facilitated through them, through the River Brewing Company. So they all came down for the event as well. So it's quite a good working collab relationship between us, which is
and
cool.
How long is the drive to Vic Falls?
It's about 8 hours.
Okay, so it's not a day's drive.
Definitely, in terms of where we are, it's not too bad.
Not too bad, yeah. Yeah, they're celebrating their fifth birthdays soon. So I'm very tempted, and I had a look. The flights from Joburg to Vic Falls are about 7,500 rand. But with
Yeah.
that, you could also really, I mean, if you search hard, you could get a flight to Europe.
Yeah, the flight prices down up and down to South Africa at the moment are really expensive.
Mm.
You do kind of feel like you could get a flight like that to Europe or something, but it's definitely worth it. I mean, to get up here and be able to travel, in the brewing industry, to be able to travel around a few breweries and be able to get into the bush,
Yeah.
it's an amazing place.
Well, that's definitely the plan, is to get my car fitted out and do some overlanding to
Yeah,
visit breweries in the near future. Yeah, that brewery. I mean, your tap room and everything sounds amazing, and I'm sure it's a positive addition to the community. The locals must love you.
yeah. They do. I can be quite a popular guy in town.
Yeah. And did you have a canning line from the beginning?
We bought a canning line at the same time that I joined the
Okay.
company. Um, we were, as I mentioned, the initial plan was to be a brewery and
Tap room.
tap, and kind of COVID obviously messed everything up. So
Mm,
then we were focusing more on distribution, and we chose to go with cans because they're lightweight, easy
mm,
to travel, easy to take in and out of the Delta as well. If you go on a trip, you don't want to come back with a whole bunch of empty bottles, but
mm,
it's small tin cans that can be crushed.
mm.
It's easier to take them out of the bush.
Yeah.
So we thought there were more benefits in using a can than bottling our product. Yeah.
And just give us an idea of the selling price of beer in Botswana.
I mean, it would be very similar to
Okay.
South Africa. The majority of your SAB products or your Namibian brewery products are all very cheap. You can get, there's a lot of quartz drinking up here. You
Okay.
can get quartz, for like 10 pula or like 12 rand.
Mm,
So yeah, so there's a big culture for drinking obviously SAB products.
mm,
So what we, are introducing here is something so new to most of the people that have spent their lives up in Botswana. Um, and yeah, I mean it's a tough one to try and compare what we're doing versus your SAB products. You're almost trying to show people it's a completely different product. Um, and people are slowly catching on. I mean, it's the first time people would have really tasted hops or
mm,
malty beers, and it's been an interesting road so far, and it's
mm.
it's going well.
Have you come across any homebrewers there?
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
There's a couple of guys who are interested in homebrewing. I try and supply them with some malt and hops where I can. Yeah, about one or two guys, but we're also quite interested in trying to maybe build up a homebrewing community and kind of get a homebrewing club going through the brewery to
Mm.
teach people more about beer and how it's made and get them interested in trying different ingredients and recipes and styles.
Yeah, because they become ambassadors. Um, yeah, I had a nice chat with a guy from Richmond Hill Brewing Company in Gaborone or PE, and I mean that is really the community or the center of the homebrewing community in PE, and it's really helped his business, I think.
Nice. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I know Big Sip were doing something similar down in Gabs.
Okay.
I've heard, yeah, I heard good feedback about it. When we were looking for brewers up here, quite a few people applied from Gabs and said that they had done some home brewing,
Mm.
and yeah, really enjoyed it, and that's why they were interested in getting more into brewing.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us about the beers and the beer styles that you make.
Um, so we've got a core range of about five beers at the moment. We do a lager, we've got a session IPA, an English style pale ale, American amber, and an Irish stout. Um, yeah, and I mean all of our beers contain a percentage of millet,
Mm.
um, because the whole idea of this project was to try and brew with local sustainable grains that we are getting from farmers up in the Panhandle, who are essentially elephant-aware farmers. I mean, that's where this whole brewery comes from.
Explain what the Panhandle is and what elephant-aware means.
Well, yeah, I mean, maybe I should explain where the brewery comes from and why we started. Because I mean, the whole idea of the brewery came around in about 2017 when our directors were kind of looking for a market for millet, because they've been working up in the Panhandle region, which is the Okavango River that flows into the delta down from Angola. And if you kind of look at it on a map, it looks a bit like a pan, and the river flowing into the delta is the handle of that pan.
Okay.
And they've got an NGO called EcoExist who work all along the eastern side of that Panhandle River, working with the farmers and trying to support the farmers and the communities who live alongside wildlife. And there's a lot of elephants in that area, and they're all farming along that riverbank. And they come into contact with elephants a lot, and it leads to a bit of conflict as the elephants, will sometimes crop raid. So they were working with those communities, and they essentially created elephant-aware farming by giving the farmers the tools they need to protect their fields, and also to be able to increase their yields.
Okay.
And one of the main things that they grow up in the Panhandle is millet, because it's a grain that grows in very arid environments, and that area is an area of very unpredictable rainfall. So a lot of millet is grown up there. So what two of our directors, Anna and Graham, who started EcoExist, they realized that if they can create a market for the millet that the guys are growing, we would be able to buy the excess millet at a better price, essentially rewarding the farmers for their efforts to farm in elephant-friendly ways. So we as a brewery are buying the millet, the excess millet, malting it and using it in all of our beers at the moment. We are using it only as an adjunct, but we're working towards a range of 100% millet beers. So we'll have a range of kind of a few that use a little bit of millet, up maybe like a few beers that are made with 100% millet for the grain.
Okay, so and supporting the locals, that's an awesome story, hey? And I suppose that's the whole reason you exist then.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's why this brewery was started.
How close are you to the retail business in Maun? Do you supply some of the stores there, or is it mainly the tour the lodges?
We aren't in too many of the kind of retail stores. There are a few smaller stores that we are in around kind of northern Botswana. And then it's restaurants, a few restaurants, and then mainly, the camps and lodges.
Okay.
We're still doing the majority of our volume through our tap room. And then we send cans up into the lodges in the Delta. There's a few places in Kasane as well, up in the north, and kind of on the border by Vic Falls, that we supply. And there's quite a good amount of tourism that goes through Kasane, kind of getting into the Chobe region or moving through to Vic Falls. So we move some good volume of beer up there to the tourists that are coming through. And then around town, we're in a few of the restaurants, a few of the lodges. Yeah.
How does the stuff get to Kasane? Is it?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Because if I look on the map, there's no road to Kasane.
If you go direct to Kasane, you can drive through the park. But at the moment, we're kind of hustling for transport, because we obviously don't want the beers sitting on the road warm, because it can get very hot here. So we were partnering with another local company that has cold trucks that move around Botswana,
Okay.
and we can use them every now and again. Otherwise, we're kind of hustling for a spot in somebody's car, or I'll take a drive up and spend a weekend in Kasane.
Okay.
But yeah, it's about a 7-hour drive
Yeah.
from Maun to Kasane.
Yeah. Okay. It's a bit like Namibia, where my cousin was farming and the post office was 4 hours away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Murray, it's been awesome chatting to you, and it really sounds like a bucket list place to visit. So I'm very excited, and I hope that some of our listeners, definitely pop in if they are in northern Botswana, but even make a plan to pack their bags and go on a safari.
No, definitely. I mean, it's kind of a different way of looking at it. If you travel, if you go through Franschhoek, if you think about it, you can stop at a brewery every couple of meters and do a bit of a brewery tour.
Yeah.
But if you think about, a Southern African brewery tour where you can go on holiday and drive between all these breweries, and be able to travel through the bush and travel through such amazing places. It's another way of doing it, and it takes you a bit longer, but it's something we definitely want to promote and try to get more people to drive out this way and come and see what we're doing, and see where we live and what is around us, because it's something that's amazing to experience.
Yeah. So let's just name the breweries in surrounding South Africa. There's definitely the Big Sip and Gabs, and then you and Maun, Vic Falls.
Yeah.
There's the River Brewery, and then in Lusaka there's 2 craft breweries. I think it's Rebel and Wild Dog.
Dog. Yeah, and then in Namibia you've got Swakopmund.
Yeah.
And you've got the Roof of Africa.
Okay, and then on the other side there's definitely one in Swaziland as well, unless COVID swallowed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do. There's a list of these breweries somewhere. I should pull that up and I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
You can start planning your road trip.
Yeah, definitely. And there might also be a book of not only South African breweries. I think it should include a couple of trips to neighboring countries.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Murray, thank you very much for taking time off your of work and chatting to us. And
thanks for reaching out to do this podcast.
Thank you for listening to our stories here online. In the show notes, you will also find a link where you can subscribe to become part of our community and be notified when we upload our latest content.